Back here on In-Game Live College Football Game Day. So we've hit the half between Penn State and Oregon, Clemson and SMU. Means we've got you for quite a while longer here on this program. We're going OT. We're going longer than we normally do, Brady Kannon. So buckle up, strap in, do whatever you need to do. Get up during a commercial break, hit the head, grab a snack, boil a pot of coffee, whatever you need to do. We're staying up late, my friend. We've got Michael Fiddle joining us in about a half hour. We'll get some more NFL talk with him. Our thanks to Doug Kazarian. A lot of great insights, some games that we will obviously double back to as well, because I have some thoughts I haven't shared. I'm sure Brady has some thoughts that he hasn't shared. We haven't even looked at the Circa numbers as far as Circa Survivor and Circa Millions. I want to know what's on Brady's card. There are just so many things to hit on this championship Saturday. I don't know if we have enough time, Brady, if I'm being honest with ourselves here. But Oregon, 31-24 against Penn State. Clemson, as mentioned, up 24-7 against SMU. Let's, of course, hit the most important one in terms of, one, my investment, and two, the one that I think more people have eyes on, and it's a game compared to the other right now, and that is, of course, the Ducks striving for that 13-0 season thus far against Penn State, who comes in at 11-1. Right now, it's the Ducks laying 6.5. The total has jumped up yet again, so I didn't get the best of the number. 85.5. I got in and went under at 83.5. It's 85.5 now, as we have 55 points here at the break. What do you make of what we've seen so far and what it means for what's to come?
Well, I tell you what, Adam, I think you're looking pretty good on this game staying under the total because, I think it's a good rule of thumb to trust the original number. I'm looking at my notes here. The original number earlier today, I think it was actually even lower than this. But when I wrote this down earlier today, the total was at 50.5. Okay, now you're 35 points bigger than that. You've obviously got it 33 points larger than that. At some point, I believe this game has to come back towards the original number, meaning slow down a little bit here. I don't think I'd be surprised if it got over 80, to be honest with you. I think you're going to see less scoring in the second half here, and maybe that field goal at the end of the first half was a sign of things to come. Field goals rather than touchdowns. As far as the side, Oregon laying 6.5. We talk about this with in-game wagering a lot. A couple of things I think to abide by here. Only bet at commercials. Okay. The feed there that you're watching is far behind what your book is dealing. And, just wait till you get a timeout, if you will. So you can, so you have no surprises. And the other thing is, I think set a number where if it gets to this, that's where you're going to jump in. And in this game, for me, we went through all kinds of gyrations there for a minute when the scoring was going nuts. But I think my end answer is under a touchdown. I like the Ducks. And that's where we are right now. We're at 6.5. So for me, this would be Ducks and under at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you. Clearly, it's what I'm rooting for personally in terms of my investment for a range of reasons, but feels like the right side. Now, that is not always how reality bears things out. Maybe Penn State I don't even want to say
That's
wakes
like a
up
good
because
T-shirt or a .com, right? Feels like the right side.com or
that's right.
feels like the right side. I like that one.
Coming soon to SportsGrid, the new afternoon show feels like the right side with Donnie Rightside. That's it. Make sure you tune in. Oh, I want to be in charge of that branding. Let me tell you, we'll create a whole social media thing for it. It'd be awesome. All right. Well, while those are at the break, let's explore a little bit more in the NFL. So last week was interesting in that it was a week for the dogs, and it's been an up and down season in that way. It was dogs for weeks out of the gate. Then the favorites had their turn for a few weeks. Now we're back to the dogs. 9-6-1 against the spread in week 13. We see the Lions get the job done against the Packers on Thursday, although technically Green Bay did cover. Green Bay did cover because of the hook, obviously. So, favorite one didn't cover. I mentioned all the teams that have the bye weeks. Again, that is Patriots, Ravens, Broncos, Texans, Colts, Commanders. And all of these games, with the exception of Jaguars, Titans, have some importance as it relates to playoff seeding, teams chasing playoff spots, games that it means something. That being said, I want to start with the meaningless game, and that is, again, the Jaguars and the Titans. And the reason I want to start with it is because one of my bigger bets of the week is actually Jacksonville plus 3.5 at Tennessee. And I have some thoughts on this one, but I want to know what you make of it.
I'd be in agreement with you. I mean, are you figuring you're going to get rich at any point during this season laying points with the Tennessee Titans? I don't think so. I mean, what is this team now?
I mean, who do they
2 and
deserve to
9.
be favored against right now?
Right, that's my point. You know, there not many people in the world.
2 and 10 against the spread, to answer your question that you were going to
I
ask.
thought it was
2 and 10.
9. And of course, the week I've been on the Titans about 3 times this year. Every single one of them unsuccessful. Every week that goes by looks like a good number in the dog roll. Feels like it's way too many points. I mean, week 1 just crushed so many of us when we were betting against the Bears and, you know, a rookie quarterback to start his first NFL game. Tennessee was the winner in that game all the way, you know, until the incredible ending when they weren't. And I bet on them a couple times since then when it looked like equally good spots. But no, I'd be with you in taking Jacksonville here. Mac Jones is unfortunately getting a few reps now because of, you know, the injuries and whatnot to Trevor Lawrence, you know,
Lawrence,
over a couple Trevor Lawrence a few different times this season. So, you know, he's not necessarily coming off of the bench cold. They have gotten healthier, have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Even last week, they got Bigsby back in the backfield there.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and my numbers, my when I run the stats, I come out to Tennessee as less than a 3-point favorite. I have 2.9. I made the number myself 2.5. So yeah, getting 3 and a hook, I would definitely be on the dog here. But I did not play it, but that is the direction I would go.
I'll add some trends to the conversation in terms of piling on when it comes to Tennessee. The Titans are 0-5 against the spread at home, 1-7 ATS in their last 8 games when favored. They lost by 23 in Washington last week, now have 3 losses by double figures in their last 4 games. This is not a team that is playing well. If we want to have some fun, I don't think we do this enough here on this show. Little narrative street fun. I like to mix it in from time to time, obviously, but you got Calvin Ridley facing his old team here in this one, and his receiving prop depends where you look, obviously, it fluctuates, but it's in the vicinity of 65.5. Let's just call it that, keep it clean. That's what it's available at on FanDuel. Do you like his over in the revenge narrative?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, I haven't necessarily looked at that number and handicapped that number and see if that number makes sense for what he's been doing as of late. I certainly like it. I've always liked him as a weapon, even when he was, you know, with Jacksonville, even when he was with the Atlanta Falcons. I liked him when he was at Alabama. I think this kid's a good player. But just based on what you're talking about going up against his former team, yes, I think those angles are real. And I think look at like Aaron Jones when he went up against the Packers earlier this year. Look at Leonard Williams last week when he went up against the Jets. Look at Geno Smith last week. So I think players really do kind of buy into that stuff. And it's not just the one player. It's not Calvin Ridley, but his teammates. That's where I think the angle comes from, the edge. They want to support this guy in their effort to get back at their old employer or whatever it is. They want to support this guy having a big game in this situation. And yeah, I think those angles are real. So I would tend to be on the yes and the over on Calvin Ridley stuff.
Well, if Brady likes Calvin Ridley going over, I can't wait to hear what he thinks of Kirk Cousins' return to Minnesota. We're going to touch on that, Falcons-Vikings, in a little bit.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Back here with Brady Kannon and Adam Kaufman. Thanks so much if you are watching us across SportsGrid TV, the SportsGrid television network, wherever you are finding us, obviously, or listening to just the audio. That is forgivable. If you don't want to look at these faces, we get it. Thanks for listening to us on Sirius XM channel 159 or wherever you are finding us on SportsGrid Radio. We're talking a little NFL while we are at halftime of some of these championship Saturday games here in college football, some real exhilarating ones as well, especially obviously Oregon against Penn State, a narrow game, a touchdown game at this moment. Vikings, 5.5, 6-point favorites at home against Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. So as I said before, Brady, another one of these games that certainly has some importance beyond Narrative Street. Atlanta's tied with Tampa Bay for the NFC South lead. Minnesota, a game and a half back of Detroit for the NFC North lead, currently in the 4-5 seeds in the NFC playoff race overall, these two teams. Now, this contest here, it's interesting for, again, a range of reasons, and Kirk Cousins is firmly involved in that. You've got, since the start of November, for one, these teams are combined 8-1 to the under. Points have been hard to come by. Falcons have failed to reach 20 points in their last 3 games. Vikings 5-1 to the under at home. And so I should tell you the total in this game. We were just showing you some of the graphics, sitting at 45.5, 46.5, depending on where you look. Cousins, it's his first return to Minnesota. He has looked kind of terrible lately. Last time out, had the 4 interception game against the Chargers. Bijan Robinson, tough spot for him. Elite rush defense on the other side. Brian Flores, we always talk about the blitz, the pressure, his ability to get into opposing quarterbacks' heads. There's no one he's probably more familiar with than Cousins on the other side. And it's a pretty good matchup for Sam Darnold against a soft secondary. Do you invest in the favorite?
Yeah. If I had to play this game, I'd probably actually take the dog, Adam. I'm really torn on this one. I think it's probably the best buy low spot we've seen all season on the Falcons because, for them to do what they did last week out of a bye week, and Cousins throws 4 interceptions, and Younghoe Koo is missing field goals again. You really can't perform much worse than Atlanta did last week. They outgained the Chargers. Justin Herbert beat you throwing for less than 150 yards. I think this is quote unquote rock bottom, at least the perception is rock bottom, and nobody wants to do anything or have any part of the Atlanta Falcons. That's usually a good time to bet on a team. Maybe the line is a little bit out of whack, a couple points, a half point, whatever it is, just enough to maybe get the side home here that the general public or the majority is down on, and that certainly would be the Atlanta Falcons in this case. And I do think there's something to Kirk Cousins going back home, like we just talked about in the last segment with Calvin Ridley. You got to figure his Atlanta teammates are going to support him and want him, obviously they want him to do well every week, but there's a little something extra on the bone this week as well. My numbers come to Minnesota. Okay, so, that has, I've got conflicting thoughts here if I'm going to make a play in this game. The other thing, kind of in favor of the Falcons side, is I think Minnesota's been very much of a bet against team as of late, and I successfully bet against them last week. I thought Arizona was a good play getting 3 and that hook. They did cover. They should have won the game. They outgained Minnesota in that game. So I think Minnesota is leaking oil here a little bit, and they are vulnerable. Do you want to really go against them with a team that looks as bad as Atlanta has lately? That's probably the only way I could go, because I think you are buying low. So again, I didn't play it, and I'm not going to, because I've got conflicting, thoughts here, but it would have to be the dog and the points for me.
I do like the over on Kirk Cousins' yardage. It's sitting at 242.5 on FanDuel. It's a modest number for one, and second to that, I'm not as convinced maybe as you are that Atlanta is going to be in front in this game. And so if Minnesota is leading, then obviously Cousins is going to be passing. So, I like it from that standpoint. And again, I am kind of hopefully not a sucker in the literal sense that I'm giving, lighting money on fire, but I'm an emotional sucker for some of these narratives, especially when they feel I'm not going to force it. Like, I didn't invest in Marcus Smart's first game back to Boston tonight to face his old team, because I know that Marcus Smart is erratic. I don't need to invest in his points, his PRA, his 3-pointers made, whatever. And as things stand right now, he's not having a very good game. So if I had played the under, that would have been the play. But when it comes to something like this, Kirk Cousins passing over or Calvin Ridley receiving over, I like these plays. These are narratives to me that make sense, and they are worth investing in.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, you talk about Brian Flores. Is anybody going to know Kirk Cousins better than the defensive coordinator for Minnesota? Is there any quarterback that knows Minnesota's defense better than Kirk Cousins? Okay, he practiced against that defense all last year, right? So, you can kind of go both ways with that as far as familiarity. Yeah, 242 does sound attainable for sure, and I believe he'll be throwing the ball quite a bit. You talk about Flores and the pressure and the blitzes. He's going to be forced to probably throw the ball quite a bit and having to get it out quickly. So, yeah, no, I think Cousins will have a good game. I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they won it. Crazier things have happened, right? And I think the offense for the Falcons is going to be more efficient than they were last week. You can't get much worse. And like I say, it's a little bit of a fade in Minnesota as well, because we have seen this team regressing versus what they were early in the season.
Brady, have you cheated and looked ahead? Do you know what the Circus Survivor contest lineup looks like?
Well, I did cheat, and I was wrong. I think this is the first time I've been wrong in a while, and I think it's because of availability. I figured the Eagles would be the most popular pick, but not everybody has the Eagles left in their arsenal. The number one selection, the Pittsburgh Steelers. 20 of the remaining 52 entries on the Steelers at home, laying roughly a touchdown to the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, we're just looking for a straight-up winner here. The Eagles, the number 2 most popular selection, with 11 entries on Philadelphia.
Nearly 40% there on Pittsburgh in the bounce back. The in-season revenge narrative for Mike Tomlin.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
All right, we are back in these games. These college football games here on Championship Saturday are just now getting into the second halves. Clemson up by 17 points, 24-7 against SMU, and Penn State with the ball to open up half number 2, although 3rd and 1 that quickly. We'll see if they were able to convert and get a first, or if it will be Oregon ball with the Ducks on top. 31-24 would obviously be a big stop for the Ducks to open up the half and keep momentum in their direction after ending the half with a field goal to make it a 7-point lead, if in fact they can do that. So we'll keep you posted on how things go here. But with Brady, I am Adam. Hi. We're talking we'll do Circa Millions a little bit later. We're going to have Michael Fiddle on with us coming up in a bit. But we tease Circus Survivor. So Brady, you gave away the most popular selections. So there are 52 current live entries. Implied value per entry of $275,000. I mean, my God, it is that point where obviously you are looking for partners, investors, guarantee yourself some cash in the chase for $14 million. We've been talking about this for weeks. There are no selection choices. That's nice. Everybody got involved. Everybody remembered. The Titans. How about this? Let's go backwards. The Titans do have a pick. One person went with the Titans against the Jaguars, which I think is so incredibly bold. I hope and pray this is an individual that has multiple entries. Otherwise, what in the hell are you doing? The Saints have 2. Bengals 3, Dolphins 4. I actually love the Dolphins this week, and we'll talk more about them in a bit. The Vikings are at 4 as well, that game we were just talking about against the Falcons. Then you have the Bucks at 7, another spot that I absolutely love. And then those 2 that are in double digits. The Eagles with 11, as you said, and the Steelers come in with 20. Now, I do believe that Pittsburgh is going to win. I don't know that I have $14 million conviction in Pittsburgh winning. There are other spots, and I know availability is a big part of this at this stage of the game, but there are other spots that I like better than Pittsburgh, that's for sure.
Well, the Steelers, and you're right, it is all about availability. The Philadelphia Eagles obviously are the biggest favorite on the board, but they aren't the number one selection. They aren't the most popular because only 14 entries still had Philadelphia left. And I remember when I was still a part of Circa Survivor, I was eliminated very early in the season, like so many people were. But I remember going through my season and mapping it out. And there were a number of spots that looked juicy for the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe none other than this particular spot this week, but there were so many spots to use the Eagles, and obviously availability was at a low point here in week 14. I think the Steelers are fine. I think the Steelers, you had 47 of the 52 entries still had the Steelers live. The only thing I think the Steelers get there. I think, this is a very immediate in-game or in-season revenge spot. They just lost to the Cleveland Browns a few weeks ago on Thursday night, an awful scheduling spot for the Steelers. I think they get right here and even the score. But you have to take Christmas into effect here. We know the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, are separate individual weeks, 2 weeks within one, if you will. And Christmas is coming up where the Steelers do play and they host the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I think you can argue, are you going to play either side of that game? That's a pretty tough one. You're probably not going to use Kansas City or Pittsburgh, or at least planning on having to use one of those sides in that game. So you can justify taking the Steelers here against the Browns. I'm with you on the Bucks. The Vikings is nerve-wracking in my mind. I'm with you on the Dolphins. The Bengals, absolutely not. And we'll get to that one on Monday night. I mean, this reminds me of the Saints. 2 games in a row here where you have lousy teams in the Saints and the Bengals as road favorites. You really want to jump on those 2 teams? I don't want any part of that. And I would believe that those are all multiple entries. I mean, if you only have one entry left, you're probably on either Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, or Tampa Bay, maybe the Vikings. I don't think you're going all the way down to the Bengals or the Saints or the Titans. Those have to be folks that have multiple entries left in this contest. It's also interesting that, what is more surprising, Adam, that one entry landed on Tennessee, or that 2 people had already used the Titans at some point in the season? As 50 entries. I mean, when did you use Tennessee, for God's sakes? And it was a winner nonetheless.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Or option C, use Tennessee and survived it. Managed to actually win, like you said. There aren't too many of those W's for the Titans this year. Touchdown SMU. Clemson with the ball back. 10-point game. Penn State still driving it.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason then to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, we are back here in-game live college football game day. There is an eternity to go in this Oregon-Penn State game. However, I will say this, Brady. Some of the best words you could possibly hear, however many of them there are, I didn't bother counting in my head, when you are chasing both Oregon on the money line and an under 83.5 points as invested in that parlay at almost 2-1 with the boost at halftime, and that is Penn State missed field goal.
Very good.
Eat up 5 minutes of clock. Penn State missed field goal. Oregon gets the ball back, sitting deep in its own territory. Let's have some lifeless play for a quarter. That's what I want. No points. Oregon go into the fourth up the same score, something pretty similar to it. Let's tone it down. We got a 24-point first quarter, a 31-point second quarter. Let's have Oregon scores one touchdown, maybe 10 points here in the third quarter, and that's it. Let's just keep it easy. That's what I'm rooting for. 9 minutes and change to go in the third. Clemson has the ball into SMU territory, up 10 against SMU, and that is a 24-14 game. And watch out, Brady. Louisiana's coming. It's 24-3, but your Thundering Herd, they're in trouble. Louisiana 4th and 2 at the Marshall 20. So we might just get a touchdown with 9 minutes left in the fourth.
Yeah, I'm really worried. The Raging Cajuns. I think it's too little, too late here. At home, nonetheless, and the Thundering Herd looking to go to 11-1-1 against the spread on the season. The most profitable team in college football this year.
It's never little, it's never late, and someone joining us from his home, Michael Fiddle. You can get him on Twitter at Fiddle's Picks. He hosts the Advantage Sports Betting Podcast, has a newsletter of the same name, contributes to the Action Network and this program. We love having him here with us. Fiddle, how you been, bud?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
Good. Well, I mean, good right now. It could be great by the end of the night. We'll see. That's going to depend on how some of these bets unfold with these games. I know that I'm sure you were invested in the NBA tonight. I know we will talk through some NFL with you. That's why you're here. But were you invested in these college football games at all?
No, there was like a small Arizona State play that I had just because I knew someone else smart on that line, and I heard they had a big win. So that was nice. Didn't watch the game. Not a college person. I grew up in New York, so there's not really great college teams to root for in New York City. I went to NYU where the college team is undefeated because they don't have one. And so I've always been more into professional sports, and my joke has always been, if they're good enough, I'll see them eventually. So hopefully I'll see these guys at the next level in a few years.
There you go.
That is indeed true. At the next level, of course, would be the NFL, and not a full slate of games. We've got 6 teams on a bye week. Never had a bye week this late in the year before, but that is the case here in Week 14 in 2024. I asked Doug Kazarian, our last guest we were talking NFL with earlier. I think this is an interesting game, and it was one of the games that I identified early in the week, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think we've seen a lot of sharp people gravitate towards Las Vegas here, especially with the 7 points. There are still some 6.5s in the market out there. But this was not necessarily a play on Tampa Bay for me, Mike. And you know, they're they're a little banged up. They've got some players injured, and that gives me a little bit of pause. But this was more a play against Las Vegas, who completely emptied the tank, gave it everything they had, and came as close to possibly winning a game as you can without actually winning it in their Black Friday game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Antonio Pierce, giving out this narrative during the week. I've got the worst team in football, and we're playing the best team. This woe is me. I was like, what is this guy going to resort to as far as a motivational tactic with his team? And how can the Las Vegas Raiders actually get up off the mat and rebound after that effort that they gave against Kansas City? It seems like they are really up against it. Where do you sign Tampa Bay and Las Vegas?
So, Brady, I was actually targeting that game for the under. I hear what you're saying, and I've just been impressed by both defenses recently. So it was really the Raiders defense that impressed against KC. And then on the Tampa Bay side, not only have they lost Chris Godwin for the season, not only has that changed their attack to more of a rushing focus. Of course, they have the big threat and Mike Williams back, but they're still just using multiple running backs and trying to run the ball and burn the clock. And on the other side, they have Vita Vea, who's probably one of the best run stoppers as the Raiders are really trying to establish the rush for their offense. So I'm kind of fading both offenses. I'm liking both defenses. In a game where you like the under, you have to say you probably prefer the dog with the points and saying, if I could get a touchdown in a game I'm going to take under. This is also the time in the week where I look to see what's moved, what I think too much in one direction before the number is going to start moving back the other way. So this opened at 45 and it's all the way out to 47 at some places. I have a feeling this closes by kickoff at 45.5 again, because people waiting for the under are just coming in later and they're going to get a good number on it.
Couple things. One, a college update. We got a touchdown out of Oregon. The Ducks did not waste any time, man. Only took about 2 minutes to get on the board. So it's halfway through the third, and Oregon is now 38-24, up 14 points. That live total is sitting at the 83.5 where I got it, Brady. I just want to note that. So we got to stay under that line. Again, low-scoring quarter, please. But I like that if a team had to score a touchdown, it was the Ducks, with my personal bias. A team that, it's not a Duck, it's a Dolphin. That's a team that I love this weekend. Fiddle, it might be my favorite play in the NFL, as a matter of fact. Miami to cover the 5.5, 6 points, depending on where you shop around. There are still some 5.5s out there. Now, Dolphins are 14-4 against the spread their last 18 games as at least a 6-point favorite. Outscored the Jets in 2 meetings last year, albeit without Aaron Rodgers, 64-13. But Rodgers stinks. 1-8 against the spread the last 9 games for New York. The Dolphins have taken 10 out of the last 12 meetings for the sake of continuing to throw numbers at you. Breece Hall is not playing for New York, so Rodgers is going to have to do this himself. In many ways, it feels like he and the team around him has quit. I just think, again, this is in Miami, too, so there will be no weather concerns or anything like that. I think it's a solid spot, pardon me. And, oh, by the way, I'll add this. I read this in an article earlier, and I loved it. The Jets lead the NFL in missed tackles per game, about 13. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, Jonnu Smith. Sounds like some guys that can take advantage of that to me.
Yeah, Adam, I completely agree. This is a Dolphin spot for me as well. Slight over spot, and I even had some props that go along with that direction. I really like Tua Tagovailoa's over 22.5 completions in this game. We know not only is Breece Hall going to be out for the Jets offense, but Sauce Gardner seems to be out for the Jets defense too, and that's their best man corner. So you could target Tyreek Hill with some escalator props, because his prop has been quite depressed with his season being an underperformance of one. So his prop lines are low 60s. So you could take a nice 60s 5+ and then try and escalate it. But I'd rather look at just Tua's over completions, 22.5, because Jets are going to have to play a lot of zone. He's been spreading the ball out to guys like Jonnu Smith, Devon Achane, way more involved in the pass game than we've expected. So I really like the over completions, thinking that Tua is just going to keep throwing short and ripping apart a Jets zone defense, which would be nice for an over and nice for a Dolphins -6 as well.
Michael, I know we've got you for a little more time here, and we're headed towards a break. So I'll set this up, and you can think about it while we go to commercial. But I'm interested in your take in the 49ers and the Chicago Bears. And I think for the Bears, the situation was similar to the Raiders over Thanksgiving. You can't come much closer to winning a game and find yourself actually losing it. Now you've got a new coach bounce theory going in favor of Chicago, possibly. The Niners look like a complete train wreck. We'll get to this one on the other side, but I'm curious to hear your opinion as well. Adam, I don't know how you can possibly back the favorite here, even though Chicago could be reeling a little bit from that close call on Thanksgiving.
I don't know. Maybe if you've got Isaac Brendo in fantasy, a little season long.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason then to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Back here in-game live college football game day. We're talking a little NFL right now with our guest Michael Fiddle from the Advantage Sports Betting Podcast. And Fiddle, Brady here was just talking to you a little bit about the Niners and the Bears. And for San Francisco, of course, there's no Christian McCaffrey. There's no Jordan Mason. There's no Brandon Ayuk. Deebo Samuel's banged up. George Kittle's primarily been used as a blocker of late. Nick Bosa is out. Trent Williams is out. And yet somehow this Niners team is actually favored. Not by a lot, but more than a field goal. And the question that Brady was asking was, how can you possibly back the favorite? Here's what I'll lead you in with. Can you, out of sheer desperation, because the Bears season effectively over. Chicago's not going to the playoffs, which, by the way, I thought they would. So the Bears have let me down, unfortunately. 0-5 on the road, 4-8 overall. The Niners, because the division is just so bad, it's wide open. 5-7, 2 games out of first in that division. So this is really kind of a last gasp moment. Can you support San Francisco?
Yeah, you can. You can call new coach bump for the Chicago Bears, but they've lost so many games where it's like at the tip of their teeth and they could have had it, whether it was last week on Thanksgiving, whether it was the Hail Mary game where the cornerback Tyreek Stevenson was turned the wrong way at the crowd and making fun of them, and then they land the Hail Mary, problems with their offense between Caleb Williams and Roma Dunes. So there's reasons to doubt Chicago too. And although you're getting new coach bump, you're getting it against Kyle Shanahan, who's a system coach, and you could plug and play a bunch of guys. He's proven that. It's also home field advantage and a big trip for the Bears to go out west and change a few time zones. So there's a few reasons you can back them. It's also, while it's a 3.5 point spread, it's a very cheap 3.5 point spread. So you could almost get it at like no vig at all. So you could call it like a 3.1 even. And you could even play the money line if you're scared of laying the hook. But I do understand this being a 49ers spot, but like it's tough to back either of these teams now for more reasons than it's like looking to back one of them. It's actually, which one are you willing to fade?
Michael, you're down there in San Diego, the former home of the Los Angeles Chargers. A big game for the Chargers at Arrowhead Stadium. Sunday night football, I believe, the feature game between the Chiefs and the Chargers. And, you know, it feels like we're seeing 2023 all over again, where this Chiefs team is just kind of stuck in the mud a little bit, but they continue to win. And who knows, maybe they're going to make it 3 straight Super Bowls. Do the Chargers stay competitive in this one, and can they cover the 4 points?
I think so, Brady, simply because I think it's like an underspot. Both defenses have been impressive. Both offenses have kind of lacked firepower at times the past few weeks. There's been some moments where the Chargers spread or total has really moved towards the over, but the result has not panned out that way. So the market has finally like stopped doing that. And it's sitting there at 42.5, which is a very low total when you have 2 star quarterbacks in Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. So I could see them staying within that just because of how key the numbers are down there and the low total. But again, it's tough for me to want to back any situation here. What I'm planning on doing is hoping that they score a touchdown or 2 early and then live betting the under if I could get a good number on it.
We were talking a little earlier about the Bills and the Rams. This is a game that I am very much looking forward to. The Bills, of course, 10-2. I happen to believe that despite their record, which is close to the top, that they are the best team in the AFC. And I hope they get an opportunity to prove that as we get into playoff time. But this spot tomorrow, you know, the whole desperation conversation surrounding the Niners, that's true to a slightly lesser degree with the Rams. Again, very important spot, needing to win, trying to chase the top spot in a wide open division and make the playoffs, because you're not going to get a wild card out of that division. It's just, you know, too far down the list, too many teams to leapfrog. I do believe the Rams are better than their 6-6 record. They were impacted, obviously, by a mess of injuries early in the season. They're healthy now. I mentioned earlier, 12-2 against the spread their last 14 December games, 8 straight home covers. The Bills have gone under in 16 of their last 22 on the road. We have a 3.5 point spread. Naturally, the Bills are favored. A total of 49.5 here, Mike.
I was about to say, I really like the under in this game as well. This is 2 teams where they're way more focused on the rushing attack than people seem. They seem to put up a lot of points, but that's because it always starts on the ground on both sides of the ball. And here we're going to have 2 stout defenses being willing to stop the run and play zone behind it. So I actually really like the under here. It's one of what I think the strongest positions on the card. And then, I mean, this is the Josh Allen MVP game. If he wins this one in LA against McVay, he's going to have wrapped that one up. And considering Saquon's number 2 on the odds, and then the reigning MVP is number 3, I think he's got a good hold on like the media voting aspect of that award. So it's like, really, is he going to clinch that this week? But it's really tough to fade the Bills right now. They've been so strong. You don't want to lay 3.5 on the road. It's tough to pay the money line. So I've stayed away from that, but I do really like the under here. And I think it's going to be another statement game from the Bills and the Bills defense to support that.
Michael, I think this is a pair of similar situations here. These 2 games, kind of ugly. One is a Monday night affair, and that is the Dallas Cowboys hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. And then the other one, also from the NFC East, the Giants hosting the New Orleans Saints. You have 2 relatively lousy teams in the role of road favorite against a couple of other pretty lousy teams. I had to play the dog in both of these situations here, Michael, because I don't believe in New Orleans or Cincinnati in the role of road favorite. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I mean, the Cowboys at home are generally a team that you've been wanting to back throughout the entire Dak and Mike McCarthy era. They've been dominant at home, and then this year they fall flat on their face being down 20 points at home every week. So I think they do have some kind of pride to play for. They did get Brandon Cooks back in the lineup, which seems to stabilize the offense a bit. Bengals defense is really weak. Micah Parsons is back for the Cowboys. They had a defensive touchdown last week, so I totally understand that. Giants side is complete dysfunction. Like, that's my family's Giants fans. I get the text all week in the family text thread about how dysfunctional they are, how they're rooting for the loss, how they're playing Tommy DeVito over Drew Lock because they knew he was worse and they wanted to tank. And now they're forced to play Drew Lock and they're putting him in bad situations. So it's like, there's no way I could find my way back in the Giants. I would go Saints, but I wouldn't touch it.
Marshall's in the red zone, so is Clemson. We'll see if those teams really open up those games.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason then to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Back with Michael Fiddle, keeping an eye on these college football games as well. Marshall up 31-3 now at Louisiana. That game has only about 2 minutes left, so Marshall well on its way to a conference championship. Clemson, 31-14 lead. SMU getting the ball back. That game is late in the third quarter, so you got Mustangs running out of time. And Oregon is leading 38-24. This one has about 90 seconds to go in the third quarter. Penn State does have the ball at its own 21. That total has dropped from, last I mentioned it, 83.5. It's down to 76.5. Now that Penn State's moving the ball a little bit, it's 78.5. So keep you posted. Oregon is laying 9.5, by the way, if you'd like to jump in with the Ducks leading by 14 right now. So we'll let you know how things transpire in that one. We are on with you until those games come to an end. Michael Fiddle is not hanging on quite that long, but he is hanging out with us, talking some NFL with us right now. So, Mike, a fun one, hopefully. It was certainly a fun one, the Snow Globe game in prime time. I don't know if it'll be that much fun. That is the Browns-Steelers. We got the full Jameis Winston experience last week. Franchise record for passing yards at 497, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He had a pair of pick sixes, of which, he's still waiting for the Lord to save him from the pick sixes. 2 of those. 2 pick sixes. It just gave away the game, gave away the cover for Cleveland. It was devastating. Maybe the best or worst beat of the season, depending on which side you were on for that game. Tragic. I was on the Cleveland side. Pittsburgh is the favorite, pretty heavy favorite, nearly a touchdown at home here in this one. Again, important one for the Steelers. They know they're going to win the division. Or pardon me, they're not. They're sitting right now a game and a half lead on Baltimore, so it's not wrapped up in the AFC North. One game behind Buffalo for second in the AFC overall. They know they're going to the playoffs, but the rest is still to be determined. Some notes. Browns are 1-20 straight up, 6-14-1 ATS in their last 21 games in Pittsburgh. Steelers are 4-1 straight up and against the spread at home. That's this year in general. Lost to the Browns, as we know, just a couple weeks back in week 12. Mike Tomlin, we always talk Mike Tomlin, how great he is as an underdog, and the numbers aren't as great as a favorite, and da-da-da-da-da. Here are some good numbers. Mike Tomlin is 11-6 against the spread in same season revenge games. Fiddle, do you like Pittsburgh to get the job done and cover?
Yes, I do, and I like the under for this game as well. I think that the Steelers definitely get this one done. I think the Jameis thing is kind of a quick pop first few weeks, and then there's more information, and you could study the tape because the Browns' offense really changed with that dynamic being added. You see with Jerry Jeudy going from like a non-existent wide receiver to I think now fourth in the NFL in total receiving yards. So I like the Steelers in this spot. I like the under in this spot. I think both defenses are very strong. I think this is a divisional matchup that's been repeated in short order of weeks. It wasn't too long ago that they played. The last game ended 43, and there was a few snow-induced touchdowns late where like the defenders couldn't move as quickly as the guys on offense. And so I think this is both teams are going to be very familiar with each other. They're going to want to limit the deep plays because that's both threats of the offense right now. So I like the Steelers to hold more steady because they're going to make less mistakes. That's the whole idea of bringing in Russell Wilson to that team. Just low turnovers and some decent efficiency. I like the under. I like the Steelers.
Trying to find the total here. There it is. Okay, so you got 43.5. Yeah,
a cheap one, and 43 is a key number.
Yeah, for sure. And you're getting that extra hook. I'm actually surprised it isn't a little higher because it seems like, Michael, all of a sudden the Steelers and the Browns have become over teams. The last couple of teams you'd ever expect to be lighting up the scoreboard.
Yeah, I mean, last week I think Jameis threw for 600 and Russell Wilson threw for 400. So yeah. It's kind of like selling high or buying cheap. There's no way that this game would have been priced at this number a few weeks ago. And I think, they've had crazy amounts of success recently, both on third downs on both offenses and explosive plays. So I think that's going to really slow down in this game because of the familiarity between both teams and both coaching staffs. And for that reason, I'm definitely looking under because you would have gotten 39.5, 38.5, 3-4 weeks ago.
100%. I mean, I invested in it a week ago and it was 40.5, and I did not get the better of the number, obviously, because like we said, it jumped up a field goal. So I reinvested. Let's really root for an under in this one, but crazy. Michael Fiddle, Advantage Sports Betting Podcast and Newsletter on Twitter at FiddleSticks. Mike, thanks, bud.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of what does it mean for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. So I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. with two former Super Contest winners, Brady, Kannon, and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
All right, no more guests. The guests were awesome. We love the guests, but they've given us enough of their time. They're done for the night. It's me, it's Brady, the rest of the way, and of course, Matt and Tommy and Rob behind the scenes. We couldn't do it alone. We wouldn't want to, and it's literally impossible. If there were no one back there, we would just be talking to each other on a Skype call or something like that. So don't we're sharing the football world with you guys right now, and a couple of lopsided games. Couple that could be getting tighter, however. Now, congrats, Brady. Your beloved Thundering Herd are victors. 31-3. Took care of business. Huge win. Dominating wins. Sun Belt champs, all of it. Marshall improves to 10-3, dropping Louisiana at Lafayette, no less, to 10-3. These other games, however, SMU has scored. So Clemson is up 31-21 now. Laying 9.5, getting the ball back, 13 minutes and change left in this one. We've gone to the fourth quarter where Penn State, after, as I hoped, we got a quiet third quarter, only one touchdown. It belonged to Oregon. But now, after methodically moving the ball, Penn State has just punched it in to open up the fourth quarter. After an extra point, assuming that hits, it's going to be 38-31, Oregon leading, laying 6.5, heavily juiced, with basically the entire fourth quarter to go. Where do you go? And oh, by the way, that live total right back to 82.5.
So they've scored 14 points in the second half. Very interesting here, Adam. You talked about, what was it in the first half? 52 points or something like that they scored in the first half. Only 14 points so far in the second half. And we talked about trusting that original number. The original number for the total in this game was around 49.5, 50.5 or so. And then you had the live number all the way, in your case, to 83.5, went as high as 85.5. In this second half, we've seen it dip back down to as low as 76.5, and now back to that magic number that you're so familiar with 83.5. But I think what we're getting at here is our theory was correct, that this scoring is going to slow down. The scoring is going to go more towards what the odds makers felt it would be originally. And I think, again, you have to kind of trust that is going to head that direction. I mean, I don't know the stats here, and maybe the odds makers know a lot better than me, but they're typically not off on a total by 35 points, right? So you have to trust that things are going to shift, and they have so far. So I still like your position. I still like my position, which was basically, locking in on Oregon at anything less than a touchdown. Penn State continues to shorten that margin a little bit, but it's like they're trading 2 for 1. Oregon scores twice to Penn State's 1. And I think, like Kazarian and I were talking about earlier, I think eventually Oregon is going to win this game by a touchdown or better. I don't think it's going to get a whole lot closer than it is right now.
Brady, you've been a consumer of football for a long time. Make some sense out of this for me. So I saw the total after the touchdown move up to 83.5, and I see it dip almost immediately down to 82.5. I went, that's weird. And so I pull up the box score, look at the game cast. They didn't kick the extra point. They went for 2 and they failed. That's why we are looking at right now a 38-30 game as opposed to 38-31 with 14 minutes and change to go in the fourth quarter. What is the reasoning behind Penn State going for 2 to make it a 6-point game versus failing, obviously, and it being 8, and just taking a little chip shot extra point and getting it to the old regular 7?
Well, on the surface, you can say, okay, you get it to a 6-point game, and then a touchdown and a traditional extra point possibly wins you the ball game. The other thing is maybe James Franklin is kind of seeing what we're seeing, that he doesn't really necessarily think he can win this game just by trading scores with Oregon, and kind of sees that they maybe have a little bit more firepower here. And that's kind of what we're banking on from an in-game wagering perspective, that, you know, every time Penn State gets a little closer, Oregon's going to be able to pull away. Penn State really hasn't stopped them all night. So maybe he's just trying to take that extra point if he can find it, and somehow close the gap with this team, because otherwise they really have not shown that they can do that to this point. I don't really know otherwise as far as the analytics and what have you. I'm just trying to think theory in his head where he sees this game going.
I think it was stupid. I think it was stupid.
Yeah.
So
I don't disagree with you, because it's very early to try it. You know, you're not in any sort. What's wrong with being down 7? Being down 8 is a bigger deal than being down 7.
Correct. I mean, now you have put yourself, even if you can get the defensive stop, you get the ball back, you drive, and you score a touchdown. Now you have forced yourself into a position where you need the 2-point conversion to get the tie. I think what would have made more sense to me, and this is not in hindsight, I would have said this to you if you had presented me with this situation. Kick the extra point, you're down a touchdown. Get the stop, score a touchdown. Then if you want to show off your brass ones, then go for 2. Then go for 2 and try and take a lead.
I don't disagree with that. You know, and
right.
And then who cares if you're down by 1?
You're down.
Right.
Right.
But, and being down by 1 is not a big deal.
No, I to do it now, I mean, I realize both these teams are going to the college football playoff. Although, I mean, a first-round bye into the quarterfinal is on the line here. Like, this is not
Maybe
a
that's what he
mean-nothing
was
game.
Thinking too, Adam. He doesn't want overtime. He wants to try and get out of Dodge as soon as possible. That's another possible theory in the mind of Big Game James.
It absolutely could be. Or we're seeing why Big Game James, is 1-15, 1-16, whatever it is, in his career against top 5 teams. Maybe there's a little, gets in his own head a little too much.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been entertaining. 68 points on the board. I didn't really necessarily expect that. I mean, when was the last time? And I'd have to look at the schedule. It just doesn't feel like we've seen Penn State put this many points on the board in a little while here. You know, we saw the game with Ohio State. I mean, when they've been in those big game situations, it seems like the offense has sputtered, but not tonight.
I'm going to look back. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give you an answer to this question. I'm going to look at their 2024 season while we're talking about it. I don't want to make the people look it up. So let's see. You had, I'm not going to go through every game, obviously. I'm just sort of doing some mental math.
Against some lesser opponents.
We saw 61 total in the game against Bowling Green back in the first game of September. 56, which all belonged to Penn State, against Kent State. We saw 63 in that overtime shootout against USC, and 59 in that game at Purdue a few weeks ago. Couple of 51s back-to-back, Minnesota and Maryland. So, yeah, I mean, nothing that has approached what this has been or what this, projects to be so far.
And against real competition, too. Those first few games you're talking about when they scored a lot, Kent State, Bowling Green. Yeah, so this is a little bit of an outlier.
If I dumb it down to ranked teams, let's just look at it that way. When they played number 19 Illinois, that was a 21-7 game. When they played at number 4 Ohio State, that was a 20-13 game. So, yeah, this is crazy comparatively.
It's also interesting going forward. What does it say about the Oregon defense? And that was a question that I asked Colby Dant earlier this evening.
It's a question
and
last year.
He is not. Yeah, and he was not real high on the Oregon defense. He thinks they've looked okay throughout the season because of the competition that they've faced. They haven't really faced any big-time offenses, and they were tested. The defense was tested when they played Boise State and Ohio State, and playing obviously a good team here in Penn State, and now giving up 30 points, and that might not be the end of it either. So what does that say about Oregon, the number one team in the country, going forward in this playoff? Are you going to be able to win a national championship with a defense that appears somewhat susceptible?
Very valid question. So again, 38-30. Oregon has the ball, 39 at its own 41. 12 minutes to go in the fourth. SMU back with the ball, midfield, first down, trailing by 10 to Clemson.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason then to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Back with Brady, I am Adam. This is In-Game Live College Football Game Day here on SportsGrid. We've got you a little while longer as we watch the end of these Clemson, SMU, and Penn State, Oregon games. They are both relatively early in the fourth quarters in both games, that's for sure. Clemson is up 31-21, has the ball back. SMU couldn't do anything with its last possession. About 11 minutes to go in that one. Penn State is trailing 38-30 against Oregon, and the Ducks have the ball. Looks like a punt may be coming, though. About 9.5 to go in that contest. Brady, any thoughts in game on these two contests right now?
Well, you asked me earlier, much earlier in the show, which one of these games, has a chance to be tight down the stretch. And I felt the Mustangs of SMU might make a game of this with Clemson. And it looks like they just might be, finally. It could be too little too late. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of time left here. They've got over 11 minutes left. Right now, Clemson has the ball 1st and 10 at their own 20-yard line. The in-game numbers come down to 6.5. in favor of the Tigers. Penn State, Oregon. Oregon just went for it on 4th down. I believe they had 4th and 2 at the Penn State 35. They went for it and got it.
Yep.
So this one is going according to the script that we figured as well. Penn State just cannot stop the Ducks. They can get close, but Oregon eventually gets to that double-digit lead again, and it looks like they're going to do it here again. You know, I looked at SMU.
Yeah, they got
just
themselves
plus-
into the red zone, as a matter of fact, Brady. So they're at the Penn State 15 now.
Right. Yeah, they got that first down, and they are threatening once again. SMU, I looked at that money line. It was plus 480. It's now plus 450, now plus 430. It wouldn't shock me if they came back and won this game. They have finally slowed down Clemson a little bit. We talked about, Clemson got out of the gate quickly with turnovers. Slowly but surely, they have started to slow Clemson down, and now their offense is starting to get going a little bit. 6.5 is not a great number to take with the points. Maybe you take a shot at plus 420 now on the money line. It continues to drop.
400 now
on SMU. Yeah.
Down to 40. Now it's 340. How
favorite.
low can you go, Brady? We're limboing this line.
We talked about trusting the original line, right? Well, the closing line here was SMU as a 2.5-point favorite. And that was part of my reasoning why I expected them to make a game of this. It's not over yet here in Charlotte.
So down to 320, just kept plummeting. And that's with Clemson having the ball, too, at its own 20 and a 1st and 10. There's the Oregon touchdown. It is now a 13.5-point spread. Oregon is leading this one 44-30, 7.5 to go. And as if it wasn't already, now that under that I'm chasing is really feeling sweaty. Now, we're still coming in, according to the odds makers, at the number. We're 82.5, and that is really juiced. In fact, minus
only
205.
7.5 minutes left, though, Adam. The clock is on your side.
We need a running clock. I mean, even if we get a long drive out of Penn State that ends in a touchdown, Oregon is just going to try and kill clock at that point in time. But it is 45-30 after that extra point, 7.5 to go. So
you get a stop here, and I think you're golden. Okay. Now
don't you jinx it, Brady. Don't you jinx it. I've lost gracier bets before. Penn
State is no longer in the mode of kicking field goals. Those are out the window.
Right.
They're going to have to go for it on 4th down. They're going to have to go for the touchdown, what have you. So if you're able to, put up another goose egg on the ensuing drive for the Nittany Lions here, I think you get home with the bet, because I think at that point Oregon's going to win the game, and I think you also stay under 83.5.
Let's hope. We'll be keeping an eye on it, obviously. There's no doubt about that. Let's circle back to the NFL a little bit. This is sort of a broad strokes kind of segment that we can do here, and that is looking at the Circa Million selections. The most popular 5 selections, Brady, across the board. Now, again, these numbers were locked in earlier in the week, so they're all not necessarily current to where we are right now. But Browns +7, Dolphins -5.5, Bills -3.5, Bears +4, Chargers +4. These are the most popular selections of the week. None more popular than that Miami play against the Jets that we talked about before. What do you think of the ones that were picked? And, how many do you share as far as your card?
I think it's a really interesting consensus top 5. We're talking about Circa Survivor and the Steelers being the most popular pick there with 14.2 million on the line. And here in Circa Sports Million, you've got the Browns +7 is one of the top 5 most popular picks. So that's, and I understand it, getting that full 7 and you're getting a little bit of line value there because there are some 6.5s in the market. I think the game will probably close 7, so not anything tremendous. The Dolphins, an overwhelming leader almost 2,300 contestants on the Dolphins at -5.5. Everybody doubting the Jets here. I think the Bills is very interesting. Now, here's something for you, Adam. The Bills were -4.5 in the Westgate Super Contest, and they're 3.5 here in Circa. So, is it line value? Well, the live market, as far as I know, is currently dealing 3.5. And we talked about, we felt that the Rams were certainly a side that is worth heavy consideration here because the situation is not great for Buffalo. So I'm surprised to see over 1,700 entries on the Bills. The Bears, we talked about that. I don't know how you can back the favorite there. The Chargers, I understand, but there's almost 1,500 people on the Chargers. There's well over 1,400 people on the Chiefs. So that one's a split. I mean, you're talking about the top 5 most popular selections here. The 6th most popular might be the Chiefs. So there's not a whole lot of difference there with what side people are choosing between Los Angeles and Kansas City. Oh, and for our card, we are on 3 of those. We're on the Dolphins, we're on the Dolphins, the Bears, and the Chargers.
2 games left on Championship Saturday that are, of course, in progress. SMU is in the red zone, Brady. 8.5 to go. And it's a 31-21 game. Now they just got backed up to the 25. But you know what? They're still close.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of what does it mean for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those 2 teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason then to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Well, we hit a slowdown in this Clemson-SMU game. 7:10 to go, fourth quarter, and SMU is kind of stalled out. Looking at 4th and 13, Brady, from the Clemson 29. So, I mean, given the amount of time left and the fact that it's a 10-point game, there you go. So now it's good. 7 minutes to go. I was just wondering
if they were going to kick it. Yeah, and I think you're okay kicking it there. Make it a 7-point game. A lot of time left. Yeah, no, they're fine. And your money line, I think you said it got as low as 320, now at plus 340. I mean, one more stop and they could have a tie game here on their hands, the SMU Mustangs.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, Oregon and Penn State. So Penn State with the ball, about 5.5 to go, and it's 3rd and 10 at the Oregon 43. And as you said, down by 15, there will be no field goals in this one. Yeah, there will be no field goals here. It's, need two more stops out of Oregon. The Ducks can really seal this one, barring some incredible meltdown. So we'll continue. Yeah, there you go. First down. 1st and 10, the Oregon 30. So Penn State's not dead yet. Still moving methodically at this point in time. And SMU, of course, will be kicking off to Clemson here in a matter of moments with less than 7 to play. So back to the NFL, Brady. I keep throwing games out. You've been throwing games out to our guests, but I'll throw this out at you. Of all the games that we have discussed, and I'd have to look at the board. There may be one or two we haven't even mentioned yet. What is your favorite one? What's Brady Cannon's top play for Sunday?
Well, I spoke about this a little bit earlier with both of our guests. I played the Buccaneers minus 6.5, and it's probably not my favorite play anymore because as the week went on, we started to see that injury report develop a little bit for Tampa Bay, and they are smarting a little bit. Their Bucky Irving got a little banged up against the Panthers. I know Mike Evans is okay. It's really a play against the Raiders for me, and the Raiders have not looked awful. They've hung around on occasion, and certainly they were right there and should have won the game last week. But I don't know. Antonio Pierce seems to have gone all in on what narrative he was going to use as a motivational tactic or what have you in that game against the Chiefs, and I don't know what tricks he has left up his sleeve. The Raiders responded and went all in like that was their Super Bowl and still came up short. I just don't know if they have anything left in the tank and can show up here against Tampa Bay. Now, Tampa Bay should win the game, and when teams win the game, they cover the spread, over 80% of the time. So that means when underdogs cover, they typically win outright. And when favorites win, they typically cover. So I'm banking on that a little bit as well. 7 does feel thick, but I just think that is really tough to rebound from if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, what went down last week. I played the Chargers +4. My numbers make KC favored by about a half point in that game. The Eagles, I laid 12.5. You can no longer find that number, but under 14, you're under a key number there. 13's pretty important as well. It's not a great teaser leg. Even a 10-point teaser doesn't really get you under all the key numbers. But, Adam, this is one of those games where when I ran the stats, I had some stats churn out Eagles by 21. So I just couldn't ignore how big my numbers were. And I know the Panthers have been competitive as of late, and one of those games was against the Chiefs, but a couple of those games were also against the Giants and the Saints. Philadelphia is on a roll right now. They're playing for home field advantage in the NFC, and I just couldn't ignore the discrepancy in the numbers here, so I played that one. And then I played a 3-team teaser and a 5-point teaser that they offer here locally at Circa. Got the Giants to +10.5, got the Dolphins -0.5, and got the Cowboys +10.5, and that pays +150. So a 3-team 5-point teaser there as well.
I am glad you brought up the Eagles and Panthers. I want to spend a little more time on that game on the other side because I do think it's a really interesting game to bet and maybe even in the prop market as well. But to quickly update people, Penn State is in the red zone. 4 minutes to go. They're at a TV timeout or perhaps a team timeout. I'm not sure. Either way, it's at commercial. 4 minutes to go. 2nd and 10, Oregon 14 on the way for Penn State, down by 15 points. Clemson with the ball, up 31-24 against SMU, and it is 2nd and 7 at the Clemson 39, 5:20 to go. So obviously SMU in dire need of a stop and then can really make this game interesting after a big comeback to get them to where we're at right now. More on the way here on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. So I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Okay, so there's the Penn State touchdown. It is 45-36 at this moment, and got to assume they'll go for two this time. Nope, extra point. Fine, sure. Let's do the quick math. 38. So what? I mean, I guess you didn't have to there, Brady. And obviously, if you fail again, then it is a two-score game right now. Like if you get it, you do make it 7. You don't, you take the extra point. It's 8, so it's still a one-score game either way. I kind of expected Franklin to go for it, though. I'm not going to lie to you. So we have 45-37. That means any other points at this point kill my parlay. So let us hope that does not happen. Let's go Oregon. Just finish this thing off slowly, quickly, but slowly in the sense that, you take plenty of time to do it. 3:41 to go, fourth quarter. Oregon is up by 8. And SMU has the ball back, down 31-24, 2:40 to go, first and 10 at its own 47-yard line. It is now just plus 200 on the money line for the Mustangs. Clemson is laying 6.5 at plus money.
Yeah, you read my mind there. I was looking at that money line all the way down to 2-1, now up to plus 220 as they face third and short here, 3rd and 4 on the Clemson 47. Obviously they are in 4-down territory as well. Yeah, the Penn State decision there is really interesting. I know, and I'm not an expert on the analytics and the math and this and that and the other about when to go for 2, but, it seems like what the guys do now in the NFL, at least, is if you're down by a couple of scores, you go for the 2 early. You go for the 2 in this case here when they scored here, so you don't have to do it in desperation when you absolutely have to at the end. Well, it seems James Franklin went for it 1 score too early. He shouldn't have done it before. He should have kicked the extra point to make it a 7-point game, get this touchdown, and then go for it, and then hopefully get it and make it a 6-point game from here. But I don't know if he jumbled that up or what he did there. But, interesting that he decided to just kick the extra point in this case here. I don't know the answer there, Adam, but it seems to me like maybe he went for the 2 1 score early, 1 score too early.
We'll let you know how it plays out. Obviously, we have our eyes on it. We were just talking about the Eagles playing host to the Panthers before the break. Of course, Carolina comes in 3-9. Eagles are 10-2. There are some have said, could it be a look-ahead spot? I don't think so. I don't, because Philadelphia is just a game and a half back of the 1 seed in the NFC. That matters. You want to get to the top. You want to get the bye. I don't think Philadelphia does take this game lightly. Laying a big number, 13.5, 14 points, as you talked about before. The Eagles, though, are 0-5 against the spread their last 5 games as a double-digit favorite. The Panthers, they have been pesky. You can quibble with the competition if you'd like, but they have covered the spread in 4 straight games. Carolina is 5-7 ATS this year. Philadelphia, 8-4 ATS in this one. It seems like an amazing spot, rushing-wise, for Saquon Barkley against an anemic run defense. Jalen Hurts going to have plenty of time to work, whether he's running or passing. That's great for A.J. Brown. It's great for Devonta Smith, who's returning from his injury. Dallas Goedert, unavailable, knee injury, placed on IR. I would attack, or at least consider strongly attacking some Saquon Barkley props, or if you wanted to maybe take it down a little bit to, and eliminate some of the juice. In doing so, you could do an alternate rushing over for Saquon, pair it with the Philadelphia money line or an alternate spread, take that spread all the way from 13.5 down to, let's say, 6.5. Take it inside a touchdown or whatever it is. Depends on your conviction here in this game. To me, there's no path, barring, injuries anyway, that has Carolina winning this game. It's just a question of how much does Philadelphia win by.
I would agree with you, Adam, and I think they win by a lot. I think they win by 14 or more. I could certainly probably see a 17, 19-point victory, and a lot of it goes into what you're talking about with Saquon Barkley. The run defense for the Panthers is awful. The defense, period, is awful for the Panthers. Now, in recent weeks, we've seen Bryce Young come back into the starting role at quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, and he's had some success, certainly. I mean, it was a long time, a season and a half, that we thought this guy was an absolute bust. It doesn't look so much right now, but now he's going to be facing one of the best pass defenses in the NFL. So I think Philly will be able to shut down. Now, they run the ball pretty well, and Philadelphia is very average in defending the run. So that is the one little area where the Panthers could have some success, and the Philadelphia Eagles defense might allow for it. But they're very good against the pass. They run the ball as well as anybody in the NFL against a very weak defense. They have Devonta Smith back in the lineup. You mentioned Goddard being out, but really it was the duo of Smith and A.J. Brown when they were together in the lineup together. You remember they were both injured for a minute, but when they came together and they went on a run where they played together for, I want to say, 4 to 6 games, and that's when the Eagles really turned their season around. And then Smith got injured the last couple of games. He missed, but it didn't seem to matter. Now you've got them both, that double barrel attack once again intact for Philadelphia. So you like that if you're a Philadelphia backer. And again, I trust my numbers. And I mean, first of all, I made the game 11. And when you get to 11 and 12 and 13, I think it's very hard for me to make a number. And so I wasn't surprised to see I made it 11, it opened 12.5. I'm like, okay, yeah, not a whole lot of difference there. And then I started to run all the stats, and I come out with Philadelphia by 16. That's the number at the end of the day for me. And that was enough. That's a 4-point difference from what the actual line is. Now it's a 3-point difference from what the actual line is. And if you have a 3-point difference, that's where I'm going to take a hard look and consider a wager.
So, Brady, let's take it back to college. It is, after all, in-game live college football game day. About the last thing I was looking for, Oregon going 3-and-out. Took about 90 seconds off the clock in the process, but the Ducks did not do anything. So Penn State with the ball, almost at midfield. We're looking at 2nd and 1, 46-yard line, and 2:11 to go, approaching the 2-minute timeout. We are approaching a break ourselves. SMU, by the way, back in the red zone, down a touchdown with less than a minute left in that one. Your money line for SMU is now
right
plus 130. Yeah, that game has turned exhilarating, obviously. Touchdown ties it as long as they don't screw up the extra point. We'll see what happens. But Oregon is now just trying to show something that we've seen very little of other than that third quarter, and that's defense here in this game. We need the Ducks to clamp down and prevent the Nittany Lions from, continuing their prowl, obviously, because, look, I am not rooting for it. I would not personally invest in it because I am firmly on the other side, but I'm not doing my job if I don't ask the question, and that is Penn State plus 450 on the money line.
Yeah, I think it's worth a look for sure. But I also just have this feeling that Oregon's going to win this game. You could see Penn State scoring, going for two. I don't know how it's going to unfold, but I feel that Oregon has been in control pretty much the entire time, and I don't think they've lost control yet here. I think Oregon will win the game. And again, I've said it for the last couple of hours. I figured they would win by a touchdown or more. Obviously, they've got an 8-point lead right now. I think we're going to stick where we are. I think you get a turnover, you get a sack. Somehow this game is going to end 45-37.
Look, from your mouth to the gambling god's ears, my friend, I hope you speak it into existence. Here's your path to plus 450 if it happens, though, and I hope it doesn't. It's a long, it's Penn State using the time that it has available, scoring, 2-point conversion, survive the end of regulation, go to overtime, get the ball first, score a touchdown. That's the only way that happens.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. So I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Kannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Well, Brady is an absolute wizard. Interception. Oregon picked off Penn State. They're just looking to kill clock at this point in time, but they are going to need a first. And we're looking at 3rd and 1 with 1:45 to go. Oregon at its own 25. So hopefully they can get that first and run this thing out and cash a slew of bets. Now, the really interesting one right now is SMU 1st and goal at the Clemson 4. Down a touchdown, 20 seconds left. What do we expect here, Brady? Because like you were saying during the break, Mustangs now the favorites. You started talking about the money line when it was, 5-1, and now SMU minus 150.
Yeah, this has been a great game. It started out on fire for Clemson and Clemson fans, and then it kind of slowed down. And I talked about SMU finding a way to slow down the Clemson scoring. Clemson hasn't scored here in a long time. That 31, they've been stuck on that for quite a while. And SMU started to play defense. And then the offense started to click a little bit. And here we are. Now I'm seeing minus 108 on the money line. So maybe they didn't get it here. I'm showing first and goal with 20 seconds left. I don't know if they called timeout, what's going on here, Adam, but now Clemson has gone back to the favorite in the live market here on FanDuel, minus 132 in favor of the Tigers. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but it may not be good for the Mustangs.
Oregon did get the first down, and Penn State is out of timeouts. 1:26 left, Oregon 32, first and 10. This thing should be wrapped up. And as Brady said before, pardon me, getting choked up just thinking about my bets. 45-37, trying to bring this one home. High-scoring, wildly entertaining affair. Both teams, as we know, are going to the college football playoff regardless. We have not seen the last of either Oregon or Penn State. But the auto bid winning this game, Oregon, obviously. So congrats to the Ducks in advance, as long as they don't fumble away the ball and, screw this up. SMU has scored, Brady. Touchdown, Mustangs.
Oh, boy.
16 seconds left. The extra point is good. We may never get off the air. Clemson, SMU, 31 apiece, and we may see overtime.
Kind of turned out to be the game of the day, hasn't it? I mean, it snuck up on us. Right? I mean, we were, we were really focused on this Oregon Penn State game, which has been, electric with, what do we get? 45-37, 82 points on the board, 32 points more than the pregame total was telling us that was expected. But all of a sudden, Clemson and SMU, for all the ACC marbles, is a good one.
Absolutely. Incredible game. We will hang out with you for another 10-12 minutes. Unfortunately, we do have to sign off top of the hour, whether that game is over or not. And I suspect it won't be, unless something crazy happens. But who knows?
You're a
Crazier
winner on Oregon, by the
tonight.
way. That game is over and done, I should say. What a bet. That was a fun one, wasn't it?
Quack, quack, Brady.
And
Under
how about my old Pac-12 boys today, huh? The Ducks and the Sun Devils, new conferences, no problem. Go Pac-12. Good stuff out of Arizona State and the Ducks. I hope they both have success in the playoffs. That'd be fun if they met eventually down the line.
Listen, I've got a preseason ticket on Oregon to win the national championship. I realized that was not this bold call at the time. It'd be like taking Kansas City or something, in the NFL. But nevertheless, they cash it. That's all we care about. So
what was the number on that? Is that like 6-1 or something?
Let me look it up real quick, and we're gonna have to break here momentarily as well. I will tell you, it was plus 700 on MGM is what I got it at.
Nice number. I think that's one of the better numbers that was out there. I think it was kind of a consensus 6-1 or so. And your friend, our friend Colby Dan, also a ticket holder on Oregon national champion.
Yeah. Well, listen, that guy and you, for that matter, I'll never reach your level when it comes to the Hunter, the Heisman, if he winds up hitting. Clemson took it back all the way to about midfield. 2nd and 10, 45-yard line on the Clemson side. That's notable, obviously. And 3 seconds left in regulation, Brady. So
you have to try it, I guess. But no, I mean, just heard from Matt that maybe this was a field goal that converted. I don't know. That's an awful long kick for a college kid.
How
far
would that be? There's no way.
You know what? It looks like the game's over. And apparently, because it's gone off my screen, apparently Clemson is a winner with a field goal in the last seconds. That's amazing.
How about that? Well, I said barring something wild, this game won't end. That's pretty wild.
Really,
a huge
really
run back
wild.
On the kick.
And it's kind of, I mean,
I don't know if you want to call it a bad beat if you played SMU money line in game, but that's a pretty tough way to go down.
FanDuel's got to be behind. I mean, obviously it's behind, but I mean, it's got, in terms of where the ball was, has to be behind. Let me look this up very quickly here. So Randall ran it back for 41 to the Clemson 45. Okay, so so now it makes sense. The last we were seeing on FanDuel was that the ball was at the Clemson 45, and I'm going, how in the hell did somebody kick a field goal from it's not possible. What FanDuel wasn't showing us was there was a play that was with 16 seconds left. There was a play with 3 seconds left, or that brought it to 3 seconds left. Klubnik converted to Williams, Antonio Williams, for 17 yards to the SMU 38. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Got to the 38 for the first down. Then, huge difference, like 17-yard difference. And then they called the timeout with 3 seconds left. And then they kicked that 56-yarder, Nolan Hauser. So Clemson wins, skin of its teeth, and a huge, avoids a massive collapse. Obviously, SMU outscored Clemson 24-10 in that second half, but Clemson held on and obviously gets that auto bid to the college football playoff. But we have not seen the last of either of these teams. So we are going to, you and I, we're going to sign off. We're going to hand it off to the next crew. Our thanks to Matt, to Rob, to Tommy, everybody behind the scenes, all of our guests. Brady, I'm Adam. We'll see you tomorrow back here on the grid.
We're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board.
He actually would not be my number one overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number one overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome into the College Football Today recap show here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Dubs Anderson. That is Rich Cerminello. And Rich, just like the slate we saw this afternoon, it is going to be fast and furious with all the big takeaways from championship weekend. Arizona State are looking like the hottest team in football. Oregon remains perfect. Georgia with a big win over Texas, but it also comes with a big loss. And we saw a nail-biter, Clemson getting the score over SMU. So let's start there. What's next for SMU and what's changed in the landscape of this new look college football playoffs?
Dubs, fantastic finish. I mean, we endured some blowouts Friday night, early Saturday, and then the SEC, we had an OT thriller tonight, a couple of great games, Big Ten in Indianapolis, Oregon, Penn State goes down the wire. And then you mentioned SMU, Clemson. Clemson almost squanders a 3-touchdown lead. They actually got tied up late, but some special teams heroics from the Tigers. They win the ACC title. They'll go to the playoffs. We'll hear tomorrow either an 11 or 12 seed. Here's the most fascinating topic. I think it's going to trickle overnight into the morning, right up until the news of the playoff brackets at 12 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. What do you do with SMU? That was a great comeback. It was a 3-point loss on a 54, 55-yard field goal. Had SMU rallied and won that game in overtime, Dubs, they would have been the number 3 seed. With a first-round bye, but now we're wondering if they get in the playoffs at all. On one loss in an ACC championship game, could you go from number 3 to possibly number 13 or 14? I think that's what the committee's going to evaluate. In the end, I think it's going to be Alabama that gets that final at-large bid over SMU, so I think they're going to be going crazy in Dallas.
Clemson got the score in that one, 34-31. Close one there with the walk-off. Another close call over there for the Longhorns. Georgia come up giant over Texas, 22-19. An OT thriller, if you will. Quinn Ewers was strong for Texas. Carson Beck was okay for Georgia, but left that game and welcome in new hero Gunnar Stockton to get them the result. But what's going to be next for Georgia? A little concerning, even with a couple of weeks to sort of recoup and get these injuries sorted out, Rich.
Yeah, listen, Dubs, it wasn't exactly Kirk Gibson Dodgers, a generation or two ago with an injured player coming off the bench. I thought it was fascinating and theatrical that Carson Beck, who could not finish the game, actually had to finish the game. Gunnar Stockton got just a vicious hit in overtime. Carson Beck, who could not lift his arm, was not going to throw, but was able to hand it off to Trevor Etienne. Georgia wins. Great play at the line of scrimmage throughout that game in Atlanta, Dubs. Defensive line dominated just like they did in October against Texas and Austin. Offensive line got a push when they needed to. Getting Trevor Etienne back was really big. I thought it was a great play by Gunnar Stockton off the bench, but Etienne in the running game was heroic. Big win for Georgia. Heading into the playoffs, listen, I see a lot of issues with this team. It's been the case all year long. Carson Beck, inconsistent, now injured. Defense has some lapses in pass defense, gave up 358 yards to Quinn Ewers. So Georgia's not a complete team. Ohio State last week loses to Michigan, not a complete team. Could this be the year for Oregon? Still undefeated at 13-0 and a big win over Penn State tonight in the Big Ten title game.
What did you make of that performance, Rich? 45-37. Penn State were pretty game in this one, but they just weren't good enough. Is this the team to catch, the winner of the Big Ten championship?
Yeah, listen, you mentioned it last week. You have a lot of love for Dylan Gabriel. I can totally see it. I mean, he was sharp. He was precise. He was in total command against one of the best defenses in the country. Dylan Gabriel has full control of that offense, has weapons at tight end, has weapons at wide receiver, Jordan James in the backfield. Defense had some issues tonight, but every time they needed a score, Dylan Gabriel came through. It's going to be, listen, my biggest takeaway of all, though, has been this playoff run and this championship weekend has been fantastic. I love the fact that we have a 12-team playoff, and I can't wait for those first games on December 20th.
Rich, we're about to wrap this thing up from championship weekend. I'm going to throw one final one at you. Arizona State, 45-19 over Iowa State. What's the ceiling? Could they make a run to win this thing?
I'm an unabashed scatter bro at this point. I love watching him. You mentioned beast mode. He was in beast mode all day in Arlington. Can they win a game? I think so. I mean, they're running on just absolute optimism and adrenaline and momentum. I love what Kenny Dillingham has done. Why not? I love ASU at this point.
We cannot wait to see who's in, who's out. That's Rich Terminella. I'm Dub Anderson. Enjoy your night.